Hey guys, Kyle, the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for One Piece Chapter 960. Okay, so first off, one thing I have to give props to Oda for with this chapter is delivering exposition in the most comedically effective way possible, because just from that attendant, like, reading off all the numerous offenses that Odin has committed in Wano since, like, his birth practically, we pretty much learn, it's basically in that moment of reading of all that exposition that we learn all we need to know as to why his father disowned him. Like in that scene, in that moment, there was really no need in order to explore beyond that in terms of what the reasoning, in terms of what Odin's in terms of what the reasoning that Odin's father had in order to disown him. Like, it's, in many respects, that particular scene, and I'm pretty sure that basically Odin had that basically Oda was perfectly aware of this, because when he was writing this chapter. But what Oda had done here is, it was the perfect subversion of, it was one of the more perfect subversions of the show and of the show don't tell rule, because in many respects obvious, because in many respects we were being told of basically all these different, we were being told of all these different offenses that basically Odin has committed to the citizens of Wano. But at the same time, we're also being shown we're also being shown the reaction of, we're also being shown the reaction to of what of Odin's father to, like, to punish his son's actions. So it's one of those things where we don't. It's one of those things where Urpunish, despite not having gotten too many moments, not having gotten like too many moments so far in order to personally get to know Odin, Urpunish the Purnish scene itself, and just the way that the exposition was delivered, is still so flown. It still flowed so naturally and fit everything we've learned about Odin up to this point. And yet, it just so happened that in this case, it was also, again going off my Purnish comedically effective line. It was one of those where it was an effective use of exposition. And it just so happened to be hilarious as shit, because again, it just feeds into what into everything it fits into everything we've learned about Odin thus far. Um, and another interesting point about this is that the best part and the best part, and the most interesting part of, in terms of this exposition and everything that Odin has committed to the citizens, and every like offense that Odin has committed against the citizens of Wano, is that contrary to what all those reports said, Odin himself, as shown in the chapter, is actually in many respects in so many ways a very respectful and caring man. Like, Odin isn't Odin isn't a bad person. He definitely respects the citizens of Wano, and he cares for them. The problem is that Odin has just a very clumsily weird way of showing it. Like, when it came to the scene of him eating, like, Odin soup on pretty much top of that, on basically top of those remains, it was his way of showing remorse for the dead. Again, it's basically so clumsily, it's so clumsily weird, but it's basically his way of showing respect. Weird as that is to say, that's what we saw. Also side note to all this, that again, well, pretty much going off what we see when pretty much the attendant is listing off all of Odin's, like, offenses to the people of Wano. That attendant looked like he was enjoying delivering this news way more than he should have. he should have, as there were a few panels where he looked positively giddy to be delivering this news to Odin's father. So yeah, I'm not sure what to make of that. If it was just funny to him, or if he was trying, or if disowning him is the result he wanted. Probably the latter. But yeah. Um, Now, from a storytelling perspective, one thing I really appreciated is how each time we were like is how with this chapter there was a lot of characters that were being introduced or reintroduced as their younger selves, and one thing I really liked is that the actions of the characters is pretty much what is that every action that the characters had taken or everything the characters were doing did in some way or another pretty much drive the plot and basically tied back to and in some way all the characters were pretty much all everything the characters were doing in some way or another it basically tied back to Odin. And this isn't something too surprising, like considering it's Oda and the way he does his and the way he does his story. With Oda himself, he basically does masterful work when it comes to tying even the smallest details back pretty much backing into the overall narrative. But with this, it is a nice it is a very nice detail. I noticed where basically all the events happening around Odin, it still managed to somehow pretty much come back to him almost, and and it's again it's an obvious detail I think, but it's a nice little detail I did notice nonetheless. With that being said, the chapter also gave us the first official introduction to the final member of the Red Scabbards, Denjiro. And with Denjiro's introduction, I'm gonna be jumping the gun a little bit with what I have to say next, because the thing with Denjiro's introduction here is this does slightly raise the question for me of whose perspective this backstory is being told from. I mean, the obvious answer would be would be pretty much Kinemon and all the others who were basically who were basically still pretty much stranded, but this. This introduction of Denjiro has kind of piqued my interest in the sense where when we do cut back to present day, there's a good chance. I want to say there's at least a pretty good chance we'll probably finally learn if Denjiro is still alive or not, because I do have again, I'm probably jumping the gun and overthinking it way too much. But with Denjiro's introduction to this chapter, I do have this weird feeling this story isn't just being told from pretty much one one pretty much perspective. I think I almost want to say that we are going to learn a lot from Denjiro's pretty much true fate after this, either in this flashback or after. I think we're going to learn Denjiro's fate in this flashback, but then we're also going to learn what possibly truly did happen to Denjiro after that. Almost, I don't know. Like I said, I'm probably jumping the gun a little bit on this one, but we'll have to wait and see. Also, we basically see that one of the other main focuses of this chapter outside of Odin was obviously showing how what pretty much the life of Kinemon was like before becoming one of Odin's retainers, and in a lot of ways Kinemon's life before becoming one of Odin's retainers reminded me a lot of Frankie, to be honest with you, when we get first introduced to him. of course, to complement that, what we also get to see is basically Tsuru and Huryuth, which first off, yeah, Tsuru, like I think Tsuru in her own way has a unique charm to her when she's older, but from Tsuru as a younger girl, total babe, just saying. And yeah, and funny thing is, for as much as a ruffian as Kinemon was back in the day, just based off his interactions with Tsuru, it felt like Suru was the one who pretty much fit the mold of basically a gangster, or at least or at the very least when we basically when we pretty much see Suru angry, because yeah, Suru, as we see when she's angry, she takes no prisoners. She says, I'll sell your fucking organs if I have to, if in order to make a buck, if I can remain out of debt. So yeah, it's pretty it's pretty obvious a lot of their friendship was probably monetary based from the looks of it, and but in many in many respects, in contrast to seeing what Suru and Kinemon were like in their younger years, it also shows the contrast to how both of them have seriously mellowed out as well in their later years. Um, One thing I do like about getting to see this in general, though, and especially through seeing a pretty much a pretty much younger Hyogoro, is is it also shows how despite being criminals, how despite being criminals, a lot of the 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 activities from which the of the Yakuza were also much less oppressive in contrast to how they act under Kyoshiro and Orochi. Like under Kyoshiro and Orochi, pretty much pretty much every single gangster has been let off the chain and are just exploiting their power for their own ends. But under pretty much Hyogoro, it was a much more I don't want to say peaceful, but it was a much more pretty much civil and a much more morally centered organization back then. As it just gives us that sense, obviously. Um, and yeah, the chapter ends where we see Odin prepared to face on a boar that's known as the God of the Mountain, and I think and I'm excited because what we're about to see is pretty much how strong Odin actually is, or how strong Odin actually is, and pretty much, and I think that this is going to be one of those things that is going to, and yeah, I'm excited to see what exactly how strong. It's just exciting to see how strong Odin actually is in his youth. Um, but yeah, guys, that's my review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Mr. Crunchyroll. Dead Knight of Enemy, signing off. Later, guys.